Today, the Meadowdale Marina just north of Edmonds is a pretty darn quiet place. But it wasn't so quiet on the night of March 22, 1920, when Rumrunner Roy Olmsted escaped government prohibition agents bent on arresting him. Olmsted was the most daring, the most successful, and the most colorful of the men who illegally smuggled liquor across Puget Sound during America's Prohibition era of the 1920s. He was, as the press labeled him with unguarded respect, King of the Northwest Rumrunners. Roy Olmsted was born in Nebraska in 1886, but he and his family moved to Seattle in 1904, and Roy joined the police department. Quick and competent, he rose through the ranks like a meteor, and by 1917, Roy was a lieutenant, the youngest one on the force, with a brilliant career ahead of him. By that time, though, Washington had become one of 23 states to forbid the manufacturing and sale of alcohol. Booze was suddenly in short supply, but still in high demand. Roy Olmsted knew the risks of smuggling liquor in from Canada, but he also knew the profits to be made. It didn't take a whole lot more convincing for this cop to turn criminal. Olmsted's arrest after the Edmonds raid in 1920 cost him $500, his fine under the new National Prohibition Act. It also cost him his job, but now Roy was free to devote his entire attention to the bootlegging biz. He soon became one of Puget Sound's chief employers, with a fleet of fast boats and a farm where he could hide his contraband liquor. It's said that Roy grossed $200,000 a month, delivering cases of Canadian spirits to Seattle speakeasies, as well as some of its most respectable citizens. By 1924, Olmsted had what the New York Times called one of the most gigantic rum running operations in the country. Olmsted didn't pour all of his money into booze, though. He constructed this elegant home in the Mount Baker neighborhood. And in a spare bedroom, he founded the city's first commercial radio broadcasting station, KFOX, now Como Radio. In the summer of 1924, after divorcing his first wife, he married an Englishwoman named Elise Campbell. She would go on to host his swank parties and to become the star of his radio station, filling the airwaves with bedtime stories for children and maybe even coded messages to his rum-running boats. But it was all too good to last. Aided by one of Roy's trusted lieutenants, the cops prepared to shut Olmsted down for good. In November 1924, police stormed the Olmsted home, arresting Roy and his wife and seizing Roy's business records. 14 months later, he was found guilty of violating the Prohibition Act. He was sentenced to 4 years here at McNeil Island Federal Penitentiary in South Puget Sound. But in 1935, President Franklin Roosevelt granted Olmsted a full pardon. Still, the former bootlegger just couldn't stay out of prisons. Until his death in 1966, Roy continued to visit McNeil and other jails, only this time as a religious convert, trying to steer other inmates away from the life of crime that had made Roy rich and infamous. I'll drink to that. For Eccentric Seattle, this is J. Kingston Pierce.
Learn more about the colorful highs and lows of Seattle's history in the book Eccentric Seattle by J. Kingston Pierce, available at local bookstores or direct from the publisher. Historic photos provided by the Seattle Times, University of Washington Libraries, Special Collections, and the Museum of History and Industry. Open daily in Seattle's Montlake neighborhood. Search an online collection of thousands of historic photos at www.seattlehistory.org.